Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from an inmate at the county jail. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. To accept charges, press 1. To refuse charges, press 2.
Well, hello, Sheila. How is it going there in the county jail? Well, can't really expect too much. It's not like the Rid Path or anything like that. But at least you're holding out, and that's the good thing. And soon you'll be heading off to the big house, and I think that's where we're going to have to really pay attention because medical over there is terrible. The staff is terrible. It is just about the worst prison in the state, and I haven't really heard too many good things about it, but it is kind of stabilizing. So I'm just giving you a heads up on that. Maybe the jail is probably your most comfortable thing for these next few years. Yeah, well, you're not going to get a whole lot of positive stuff out there. So prepare yourself for the worst and then do the best you can. Pretty much, you did watch the video that I made about the prison. So just keep to yourself and stay out of that drama. That's the big thing because there's a lot of snitches in there and they love to tell things, whether they're true or not, just to get a little reward here and there. And so that's something you definitely have to keep a lookout for. And we'll try to get you the names of some of the staff members that are decent and care. And we'll get community leaders out there for you too. So it's going to be a challenge, but we're all up to it. And I've been doing this for years, so there's a lot of contacts I've made, and that'll help you out. But you've really got to do a lot on your own, and don't give up on that. Good. Glad to hear it. Well, I did get a call about a person, or well, from a young lady at the prison, and she was saying that the kitchen bakes up a lot of food, prepares food for people, but they're forced to give them small portions and throw the meals away. There's a lot of food that's wasted, even though people have been suggesting that it go to the homeless or that they save it, serve it up as leftovers, or reincorporate it into another meal or something that would save the money. And so it kind of makes me wonder, why in the world would a prison waste food like that? And I get a little suspicious that they're trying to get more money into the prison, which is completely wasting money. I've noticed that over the past few years. And then maybe somebody is skimming money from the top. There could be some embedded in some crimes being committed here, and I have to look into it. Maybe when you get there, you can ask around, get some information to me. But it it just goes to show that when you stop monitoring a government agency, there's a good tendency that it will abuse that and start hiding. It's almost like locking your car to keep honest people honest. They'll do things because nobody's really saying anything. And I like the fact that I'm getting more information out of that prison than other prisons out there. And so it makes them want to lock down a little bit more. The men's prison, I haven't been hearing
You
too
have
many
60
problems with.
seconds remaining.
But that woman's prison, oh my goodness. Yeah, we don't want another Dublin prison. So let's keep an eye out for that. No, no, this is not meant to scare you. It's just meant to show you that you need to really be on the lookout for this kind of stuff. I'd hate for you to be caught by surprise. Well, yeah, thanks for the call, and you take care of yourself, and I'll be sure to get the word out to
You have
everybody.
30 seconds remaining.
Good, good. Okay. Well, don't be a stranger. Remember, just give me a call when you need it. Okay, you too. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Hello, welcome to AQS Inmate Call. I am your host, Joel Wilborn, and in this episode, I want to discuss the shady activities of the Washington Correction Center for Women. I'll concentrate just on that particular institution because that's the one that's just banned me from communicating with anybody in there. They cannot call me. They cannot send me messages. They cannot send me mail. And rather than follow policy, this particular prison ignores the law, ignores the policy, ignores requests. I could send them an application, and rather than acknowledge it, they'll just completely pretend it didn't even exist, and I'll have to send in follow-up stuff. So this is a prison that's hiding something. At least that's the way I see it. So that's why I want to concentrate on that today. And one of the big things is that I mentioned in the call is that they're wasting food, and it doesn't surprise me that they would do something like that. But why, when even the people who are in there are concerned about the wastefulness, and these people, we need them to be healthy. If they walk into the cafeteria for meals and they get a small portion of their meal and the rest of the food is thrown away, kind of makes you wonder, why not just let these folks eat their fill? If a person is hungry, it it affects them mentally as well as physically. And from the outside, looking at that, it just doesn't make any sense. And if I were to send an email or a letter or even call them, I wouldn't get an answer to it. And that's the shame. But going to court, I could get an answer. And you would think they would be more willing to resolve something without going to court, but I don't know. I've given them options. Let's work together on this, but they don't want to listen to it. And so, with my background as a criminal investigator, it would cause me to do some more digging. And I can get a lot of information by talking to the people that are in the prison, talking to prison officials, talking to family members. And it's just all leading to shady operations. So, one of the stories that I put out there was with Deborah Kennedy. She sent me a letter, and this was through a third party because I can't receive one directly from her. But she was complaining about government officials, and this is not just DOC, but it's pretty much state, county, city officials, and it goes through the process of being arrested and going to trial. And I've had several people tell me stories about evidence being suppressed or evidence that's been planted or disappears, and the conviction comes along quite easily. It would take me a while to do an investigation and gather enough information and evidence to go to trial. And then during the trial, there'd be a lot that the defense would come up with. So it's not as easy as it looks on television. Even with overwhelming evidence or what we think is overwhelming evidence, it could be challenged and in some cases convince the judge and jury that this person should not be convicted and go to prison. So there's a lot of work involved in gathering up evidence. And I can see how some law enforcement officials and judicial systems would want to expedite that process by cutting some corners. But look who suffers. Not only are these people locked up for sentences they shouldn't be getting, but the community, especially through their loved ones, they're looked at as a justice system that cannot be trusted. And that's not what we want, because anybody could get arrested. And you want a justice system that's fair. If a person has evidence, you want all that evidence up there. And there are times that the chain of evidence could be compromised, or maybe a witness could say something he thought was true, but after the trial goes on, it's like, oh, I made a mistake. These things happen. That's why we have the justice system, and it could take a while. That's why I think criminal justice, and that's the DOC and the justice system, shouldn't have to worry about a small budget. Now, I know in the county where I live, Spokane County, we are against them building new jails because they're so quick to just lock people up. And one of the reasons we don't want them locking everybody up is because of what Deborah was saying in her letter. There's a lot of mishandled cases out there, and people are being locked up that don't need to be. And so when a jail is getting old and needs to be replaced, and they come to the public, we're immediately going to go out and oppose it. We don't need to build another jail. If the jail holds 400 people and they've got 500 people that they want to lock up, they need to come up with something. Now, in our county, a lot of people that we'll say they're minor offenses, and normally they would go to jail, but they're releasing them early, or they're just not going to arrest them at all. And it hasn't seen an increase in crime, but we have seen a decrease in locking them up. Now, you take a person like when I was arrested, I had a drunk roommate, and I told her she needed to stop drinking, so I took her beer, poured it down the sink, and she was very upset. So she called the police and said I threatened her with a gun. They came out, arrested me, and they wanted to put me in there for a $10,000 bond. But my attorney talked them into $5,000. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm sitting here in this jail with a $5,000 bond. And for me, I had to call somebody, to get that stuff. But I'm thinking, and for me, I knew I was innocent, but I was just sitting there. And because I didn't immediately pay this bond, I didn't get out. Now, when she sobered up, she realized what she did, and she dropped all the charges, and that was the end of it. But you put a person in jail and you give them this high bond that they cannot afford. Yeah, they're going to be sitting in jail. And to come to us, the public, and say we need to build more jails while you're putting people in there for $10,000, $20,000, $100,000 bond that you know perfectly well that they cannot afford. I mean, if you're so concerned about all this, you can gain a little money by putting them in there for a $500, or maybe let them leave on their own recognizance. That's another thing that we're concerned about, this ridiculous bond. And we need to lock up the violent people. If they're going to be a danger to themselves and the community, they should be locked up. And there's not going to be 600-700 people in a small county that needs to be in jail. And when I was in jail and I was looking at the other things, there were people in there that were just nervous. They were scared. They didn't want them to find stuff on them and lock them up for a long time, but they did not trust the system. And I was fortunate because I didn't have to go through the trial, but no telling what would have popped up over there. Would they have come up with stuff? Even if she had recanted everything, would they still have locked me away? I mean, they really wanted to put me in there for a violent crime. It was she said I threatened her with a gun with a felony assault or felony domestic assault. And so I got a chance to experience that part of it. And then when I did the story on Shane Goldsby, you can see his story on my YouTube channel or on the podcast. He was put into a prison cell with his sister's rapist. What do you think's going to happen when something like that goes on? There's policies out there, there's laws out there these folks need to follow. They're constantly pointing fingers at us just to hide the fact that they're not doing their job. And their job is to follow the law and to follow policy. It's extremely easy for them to do that. They make it complicated. They try to hide stuff and they try to cover up their inadequacies. And that right there is the core problem with the penal system. They work harder to cover things up than to just do the right thing. And when I'm accused of something, just like Deborah was saying in her letter, they tend to believe each other. I'll ask for evidence and they'll tell me Assistant Secretary Wolford told us this. That's their evidence. That's their sole reason for doing this, is because somebody told them. Not because there's any concrete evidence or any witnesses. It's because they said this on their own, another official. I can challenge an official in court. That's really easy. Evidence is a little difficult. You know, if I'm accused of smuggling something into the prison and they have video of me smuggling in it and they have the item that I smuggled and witnesses that testify to that, that's a little tougher to fight. I mean, it can be fought because that's the way the court system is, but it's difficult to win something like that. But if it's just not really an eyewitness, but just somebody making a statement. Now, in the state of Washington, making a false statement in an official document is a misdemeanor. It's a crime. I've got so many cases or so many situations that I can use in court where they actually did that. They actually said things. I can prove that these things are false statements. And I'm looking forward to doing that. You know, I've tried everything else. They're not willing to work with me. Going to court is the best way to do it. And I can keep track of that with my podcast. But I just kind of sit there thinking, they're telling me that I'm a danger to the people that's in the prison. First, it was all prisons. Now it's just the women's prison. And so they're telling me that if somebody writes me a letter, it's dangerous. Or if I send a birthday card to somebody, it's dangerous. And for me to go into the court and ask, well, why do you say that? Because I have a history of smuggling in items. And it will just be the word of somebody. No evidence at all. I know I was wrote an email once, and when you send a picture that's unauthorized in the email, that's considered contraband. And they accused me of sending stuff through email that was unauthorized. Now, the prison itself delivered it to the person. And so I would say in my argument, if the prison delivers money to somebody, it's authorized. If it delivers mail to somebody, it's authorized. If an email is released to the addressee, it's authorized. That's my philosophy. For them, whether they deliver it or not, they still consider it unauthorized. And so that is easy to dispel, very easy, because policy states certain conditions must be met to deliver. If they're telling me this is a contraband and they deliver it, I'm not 100% at fault here. And pretty much everybody who sends email will send something that's wrong. Some of them go through, some of them get caught. They're supposed to catch it, they're supposed to uh, delay it from being delivered so they can look over it, and then they're supposed to reject it and send a notice. That's the way the policy works. But with me, it's different. So they're accusing me of wrongdoing by sending stuff that they authorize. And so I'm ready to defend myself against that. But why not just follow policy? They demand it from us. It would be very easy to spend money on food, give the food to the women that's in the prison, and not waste any of it. But do they want me broadcasting that they're wasting food in there? I guess they do. Because even though they're blocking me from communicating with people, they can't block their family and their friends and their loved ones who report things to me. And their staff members, community leaders, other advocates that broadcast this stuff as well. There's even a few ladies in the prison that want to do their own podcast and broadcast the information from the prison. But of course, that has to be heavily monitored. But like I said in the phone call as well, they've got 2 prisons dedicated to women. I would like to stay in the state of Washington. They're biological women, but people can choose their gender. So a person who identifies as a female can go to the women's prison, one of those 2. One of them is about to close down. And Mission Creek and Washington Correction Center for Women are the 2 female prisons. Mission Creek Correctional Center for Women is about to close down. According to one of the reports that I get. So there should be only one female prison, and the people in this state by law can choose their gender. Well, when Amber Kim was caught having sex with Censore Nurdin, she was sent to the male prison. Censore was just, she was pretty much given a smack on the hand. She was upset about that. People were blaming her, and of course, there was a lot of trauma that went behind all of that. And Amber is upset. wants to go back to the female prison. Maybe I can get her story out there. But Censore says that Amber's lying about everything, and Amber was pretty much blaming Censore for coming on to her. And so it's one of those things where the law is you identify as a female, you go to the female's prison. So why did they send Amber to the male prison? I mean, they could easily have sent Censore to the male prison. It's just the things they do here is just crazy. But Amber's fighting, and she's giving me updates every once in a while. I can talk to the people in the male prison, so that's fine. So she'll send me information about her case and how she's ready to go back. And her rights are being stepped on. If they don't like the way these things are run, they should change the law, but this is the law. And this is one of those things where they're just not paying attention. And it's something I have to broadcast to everybody. I want folks to know this is wrong. And we need to fix this. There's a lot of wrongdoing going on in there. And the only way we can fix this, save ourselves money and stop building more prisons, locking more people up, is to find out that most of the problems are caused by human behavior. A person commits a crime for a certain reason. Let's try to get rid of that reason. Let's try to help them find alternatives to the crime. Let's work with the person just like they do in other countries so that they won't go back. Let's reduce recidivism. And let's get the prisons to follow policy. My lawsuit is geared strictly for that. These are the policies that were broken. These are the witnesses. This is the evidence. This is the crime. Let's fix this. Let's broadcast it to the world. Let's let everybody know that there's a problem in this prison. And in order to get a safer community, we need to fix it. Well, hopefully you'll go out. You'll talk to your friends and family. You'll work with your local community leaders to try to reduce crime. And let's try to find alternatives to locking people up and building prisons. I hope your family and your friends and your loved ones don't vote to build more prisons or don't vote to build a new jail. We can do this without locking people up constantly. Well, go out, have yourself a beautiful day, and make fantastic memories for tomorrow.